Selling enterprise cloud solutions is never easy, but trying to do it in Sri Lanka, well, that's a whole different ballgame. It's a market where having the best product or the slickest features is just not enough. You need something more. You need a very specific key to unlock a very unique door. So let's get into it. And this really gets us to the heart of the matter. Why do these high-powered, data-driven sales strategies, the ones that work almost everywhere else, so often just fall flat here? The answer you'll find isn't about the tech or the pricing. It's about people. And this is where the big shift in thinking happens. We're not talking about a quick one-and-done transactional sale, like buying an app online. We're talking about building a long-term, high-value relationship. Think of it this way. It's the difference between a one-time purchase and a strategic partnership. When you're selling enterprise cloud solutions, that client isn't just buying your software. They're buying into you and your company for the long haul.
And that right there brings us to a new sales reality. The bigger the deal, the more complex it is, the longer that sales cycle stretches, the more absolutely critical that human connection becomes. Trust isn't just a nice to have, it's the entire foundation the deal is built on. And if you think this is just some fuzzy, feel-good idea, the data says otherwise. Big time. Research from Daniel Goleman found that a staggering 90% of what makes a top performer so effective isn't their IQ or their technical genius. Nope, it's their emotional competence. And over a long, tough sales cycle, that's the one skill that gets put to the test over and over again.
Okay, so if trust is the goal, then we have to understand the specific world we're operating in. Sri Lanka's business culture is what we call a high-context landscape. The best way to think of it is like a unique, intricate lock. And your standard, everyday sales key, it's just not going to fit. You see, you've got these 4 elements that create a really unique environment. First, there's a strong sense of hierarchy, so you have to show respect for authority. Second, communication is often indirect to preserve what's known as face or reputation, so you have to learn to read between the lines, because a yes might not actually mean yes. Third, business gets done based on personal relationships, not just spreadsheets. And finally, timelines can be, well, let's call them fluid. A hard-charging, aggressive approach is just going to backfire. It's seen as disrespectful, and it'll shut doors before you even get a foot in. So we've got this complex cultural lock. The big question is, what's the key? Well, it's emotional intelligence, or EQ. This is the master key that lets a salesperson navigate this world and not just survive, but actually thrive.
So what exactly are we talking about when we say EQ? Well, it's the ability to not just read the room, but also to read yourself. It's about recognizing what you're feeling and managing those emotions, while also being able to understand and influence the emotions of the people you're with. Let's do a quick run-through of the 5 core components. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with self-awareness. This is the absolute bedrock of emotional intelligence. It's about knowing what pushes your buttons. It's understanding that your own frustration or your impatience might be coming across to the client in a negative way, and being able to catch it and adjust on the fly. And that leads right into the second component, self-regulation. Think about when a client hits you with a really tough objection. Well, this is your ability to stay cool, calm, and collected, to respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting defensively. This is absolutely critical for building that trust, especially when things get tense. Then you've got motivation. And we're not talking about commissions here, we're talking about that internal fire that keeps you going through a long, grinding sales cycle. It's the resilience that lets you see a deal that's stalled out, not as a personal failure, but as a chance to learn something. All right, component 4 is empathy, and this one is huge. It's about truly, genuinely putting yourself in your client's shoes. Empathy is what transforms your sales pitch into a real consultation. It's what allows you to listen for the unspoken needs, the worries, the real pain points that are driving their decisions. And finally, number 5, social skills. This is where you put all the other pieces into action. This is your ability to build real, authentic rapport. It's about reading the body language in the room, picking up on the nonverbal cues, and adjusting how you communicate to really connect with all the different personalities you're dealing with. Okay, so we've got the 5 components of EQ on one side, and we've got the unique challenges of the Sri Lankan business culture on the other. Now, this is where we connect the dots. This is where it all comes together. We're calling this the synergy matrix, and really it's a simple way to show you exactly how that key, EQ, fits perfectly into the lock of this specific business culture. I mean, just look at how perfectly this lines up. You're facing those fluid timelines we talked about? Boom. Self-regulation is your superpower. It keeps you patient and it stops you from pushing too hard and damaging the relationship. You're dealing with that indirect communication. Empathy is what helps you read between the lines. And in a culture that is totally built on relationships, well, your social skills are what build that essential foundation of trust. It's a perfect fit.
All right, so it's one thing to understand all this, right? But the real question is, how do you actually build a sales team that operates this way? It's not enough to just know it. You need a concrete, actionable playbook. And the roadmap is really a four-phase process. It has to start with recruitment, hiring for EQ, not just for a great resume. Then you have to actively train and develop these skills. From there, your leaders have to coach for emotional intelligence, not just for sales numbers. And finally, you have to measure it and reward it in performance reviews. It has to become part of your organization's DNA. And look, this isn't some fluffy, abstract concept. We're talking about concrete actions. You can use role-playing to let your team practice handling that indirect communication. You can run drills on active listening, where they literally have to summarize what they just heard before they're allowed to respond. You can even bring in techniques like mindfulness to help them improve their self-regulation when they're under pressure. This quote really just sums it all up perfectly. Investing in your team's EQ isn't a soft skills program. It is a hard, strategic investment in the things that actually lead to success: trust, authenticity, and adaptability. And those are the things that build the kind of long-term, high-value partnerships that last.
And that leaves all of us with one final, pretty critical question to think about. It's easy to build a team that's book smart, that knows your product inside and out. But in a market like Sri Lanka, and honestly in any complex sales environment today, the real lasting advantage comes from a team that is emotionally intelligent. So the question is yours?